I met Barrington Scott. I was in my gym one day and I was training, and we used to have open trainings when I would train for a fight sometimes. So people could come in and look. There were times when we would lock the door and you couldn't. So that was when I had my gym over on Colorado Avenue, 14th in Colorado. So I'm in the gym, I'm in the ring, sparring. And at the time I had a fight, the championship fight coming up. So I was going 20 rounds, but we would do 20 3-minute rounds. Women's boxing is 2-minute rounds, but we would do 3 to 4-minute rounds. So Mr. Scott came in and we were boxing, and I look over at the door and I don't know who these people are. It's him with his presence. And so my first instinct was like, who is this coming up here, like spying on us? That was like our first thought, because you worry about who's coming in your gym. Spying, especially if you have a championship fight coming up. But when he was introduced, I remembered right away. When I tell you, this man came in there and brought so much love into my gym and brought so much support into my gym. I did not have a trainer. I'm sorry, I did not have a manager, and I did not have a promoter, but I had a championship fight coming up because I was an underdog. I was the quote unquote tomato can that they were going to beat to get to the top. And so with just myself and my trainer and my sparring partners and such, so I would do what they call a round robin. I would spar one person, maybe 2 rounds. They would get out. They would bring in a fresh person. They would get out 2 rounds, and it would go around like that. And I think I astounded him because I was probably the one that got out of the ring and I was not tired, and I was just like ready. And he was like, yeah, you got it. So when I met Mr. Scott, who's done all the things that he's done, now I'm going to read the blurb. That is why I love Barrington Scott the way that I do. Okay, so Barrington Scott served as a trustee of the University of the District of Columbia for a decade, applying his expertise in higher education and community service. As both an alumni and board member of the UDC Foundation, Inc., Scott contributed to the foundation and the university's development, helping UDC raise from 77 to 23rd among HBCUs nationally. Scott led a campaign honoring 1904 alumni Dr. Edwin Bancroft Henderson, raising $300,000 for a statue that's at the sports complex bearing Dr. Henderson's name. Beyond UDC, Scott is an engaged parent, grandparent, and co-founder of the Calvin Coolidge Association, which has provided over $4 million in scholarships to graduating seniors. And in 2018, he established the Academic Excellence Award to support high-achieving HBCU students. Currently, Barrington Scott is president of the Pigskin Club of Washington, Inc., and serves as a deacon of intercessors of City of Praise Family Ministries in Landover, Maryland. And now I present to you Mr. Barrington Bo Scott.
Well, everyone, this is a great honor to be here. First of all, I'd like to pay tribute. I'd like to pay tribute to all the past presidents, especially my dear friend Donnie Shaw here, all the past presidents, board members, and those who continually to give back with the Rotary Club of DC Rotary Club of Washington. It's interesting because I see that you guys have been doing work in the community for many years. I'm president now of the Pigskin Club of Washington. Some of you might know of us. We were founded here in Washington, D.C. at the 12th Street Y on October the 7th, 1938. You probably wonder why I'm so interested in E.B. Henderson. You'll find the connection in a little bit. Also graduate from the University of the District of Columbia, phys ed major. I do have Dr. Lucas with me this evening, who's actually working with our foundation, and he's working on the 175th anniversary of the University of the District of Columbia. And so we are really excited about moving into that piece. You'll have some opportunities to actually give to the UDC Dr. E.B. Henderson Scholarship Fund, where we're trying to raise money as well, just like you are, to give back to students from the District of Columbia. So let's jump right into it. Dr. E.B. Henderson's story, grandfather of Black basketball, native Washingtonian, born 1883 here in the District of Columbia, educator, writer, basketball pioneer, civil rights advocate, referee, played a crucial role in basketball for African Americans here in the District of Columbia, but even more specifically than that, first African American to become certified as a recreation professional. At that time, they called it, well, he became a recreational director, but certified. And so he came out of M Street School, which was the first high school in the District of Columbia for youth, for African-American youth, now Dunbar High School, you know about that. At Dunbar, he played baseball, football, ran track. He then came to then Minor Normal School. Now, what was Minor Normal School? Matilda Minor established a school for girls, for colored girls in 1851. So most people don't know that UDC is the second oldest HBCU in the District of Columbia. In 1904, Dr. Henderson, a great scholar, graduated from Minor Normal School. There, he met the first African-American person and woman to be certified in the entire United States, Anita J. Turner, who was his mentor. She encouraged him to follow her footsteps to Harvard University. Okay, at that time he went to Harvard during the summer months, because after 2 years of teaching, after coming from minor, you could teach school. So he would teach school, and in the summer months he would go to Harvard Dudley School for physical education to work on his certification degree, right? And so she really was the one who kind of got him excited about going to that school. There at Harvard, he found all about athletics, but more specifically basketball. That became something that he was really interested in. And he saw basketball as something totally different. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. I want to give you his background in terms of his education. He got his master's degree from Columbia University. Okay. He also went to a school in Kansas City, Missouri, the Central Kilpatrick College, where he got his PhD. Dr. Henderson was an educator, okay, of physical education. He also taught in the public school system from 1926 to 1954, organizing athletics. Even though he gets credit for establishing the whole structure for basketball for African Americans, him and Anita Turner, his teacher, actually were the two people in the District of Columbia who organized recreation for African American kids. They were over all schools that pertained to African Americans at that time. So they had Armstrong High School, M Street School, they had Howard University, and Minor Teachers College. So they were working at all the schools at one time. Now, interesting enough, Dr. Henderson's wife Mary Ellen, was also a teacher who graduated in 1905 from Minor Teachers College. But then women could not be married and teach in the same jurisdiction. So she went over to Alexandria, Virginia. They moved to Alexandria, Virginia. He would ride his bicycle from Alexandria, Virginia, all the way to District of Columbia every day so he could teach school. She actually, there's a school in her name in Alexandria, Virginia. Dr. Henderson was really a civil rights advocate as well. he actually became the president of the first rural NAACP in Virginia, making total differences in that area. But in DC, he also worked very closely with the NAACP here in the District of Columbia, served on the boards, also was a part of what we used to call the Rosedale Playground up in Georgetown. He helped make sure that that playground was not segregated. They helped desegregate that playground up in Georgetown of New York, Georgetown of Washington, D.C. And that happened back in 1913, okay? Because most playgrounds were segregated. And so he wanted to make sure there were two sisters that played, they were tennis players, and people would come to that particular playground to see these African-American sisters. Some were like Venus and Serena. They would come and play tennis up at those courts. Dr. Henderson also was a writer. Can you hand that book, the bottom? Yeah, no. Dr. Henderson was a writer. This book is very hard to find, so, but I did bring it. He wrote The Negro in Sports, the first book that was written specifically chronicling African Americans in sports. Okay? He also, his son, James H. Meriwether Henderson, wrote this book on his granddad called The Molder of Men. Okay? And his grandson, who I had the opportunity to meet in 2010, it's a funny story. In 2010, I met the grandson, and he had done this pamphlet, and he gave it. I was working on a trail for my fraternity of Washington, D.C., and this one little pamphlet that you have is what inspired me to want to know more about Dr. Henderson and his efforts here in the District of Columbia. And because of this pamphlet, I told him, someday I'm going to do something for your grandfather. I don't know what it is. And lo and behold, who would think some 20 some odd years later that I would have the opportunity to be in a position to help raise some money and to have some folks buy into me putting a statue at the University of the District of Columbia in his honor. So what kinds of things did Dr. Henderson face trying to allow folks to understand about basketball and how it could help our generation of people? Segregation is what excluded most African Americans from being able to participate in sports in the District of Columbia. Limited access to facilities. There were no basketball facilities in the District of Columbia for African Americans. Most people don't know, on U Street, right across from the legendary Ben's Chili Bowl, sits a building called the True Reformer Building. The True Reformer Building was the first building in the District of Columbia that was built, paid for, and operated by African Americans. Most people think that the Million Man March had a lot of people here. But when that building opened up, there was almost 50,000 people on U Street to see that building be open, because it was the pride of African Americans in the United States to see something like that being built. Well, basketball in 1904 actually was played there for the first time. Dr. Henderson got a group of guys from Minor Teachers College, from the M Street School, and some from Howard University. They were called the Spartans. And the Spartans learned, Dr. Henderson was teaching them how to play basketball. And strangely enough, Anita Turner was teaching women how to play basketball too, but it wasn't structured at that time. So Dr. Henderson actually structured the whole concept of basketball. In 1905, he decided, why teach basketball when I know that they're going to need referees? So he started an organization called the Eastern Board of Officials, which still is around today. The Eastern Board of Officials was the first African-American officials in the entire United States. And he started those officials because he knew that at some given point, they would have to have the opportunity to have basketball being they would need referees. So it was very interesting that he knew that. And let me tell you about the True Reformer building also, which was interesting. The basketball games then was also like a social scenario. So they would come, play basketball games there, but they were people in Arlington who actually was a student of Dr. E.B. Henderson. In fact, he told him he couldn't play basketball too well, so keep with the music, right? So, so it worked out in his behalf, right? And that's why you see that picture of Duke Ellington up on the True Reformer building today, right? Dr. Charles Drew, his daughter actually served on the board at UDC with me, Charlene Drew Jarvis. You probably heard that name. He was a basketball player for Dr. E.B. Henderson at Dunbar High School. He had 3 students that played for him that, because of their outstanding play in basketball, they had the opportunity to go to Amherst College on educational scholarship as well as athletic scholarships. So it opened up the doors for these kids to have the opportunity to move through life. In 1909, 1910, Dr. Henderson put together a team at the 12th Street Y, right? They were called the 12th Streeters. And you know about the 12th Street Y. 12th Street Y is very important to me because the Pigskin Club, one, was founded in the 12th Street Y on October the 7th, 1938. The Brown versus Board of Education case was studied there. That's why they call it the Thurgood Marshall Center now. And also, E.B. Henderson was the one who chaired the effort to raise the money for the building. Most people don't know that. He raised the money to get that building built, and he raised so much money that the reward at that time that they gave him was a watch, a gold watch for his efforts to bring forth that kind of activity at that building, which still's around today, and doing a great job in helping the community. Of course, there was a lot of racism during that time, but Dr. Henderson fought hard to make sure that basketball would be around. There were games that were being played up in New York. New York actually had a team called the Smart Set, and they were club teams at that time. And the Smart Set actually won the first what they call colored championship. They won in 1907, 1908, but then in 1909, Dr. Henderson and his guys went up to New York, and they came back with the championship to bring it to Washington, D.C. So D.C.'s first basketball championship was at the 12th Street Y. The 12th Streeters won the championship. Dr. Henderson, he actually played basketball too. In 1905, his last game playing and coaching at the same time was 1905. He was married to his wife, Mary Ellen, on Christmas Eve. And they went up and they won that championship in New Year's Eve, 2025. And he came back and he said, guys, I can't play anymore because I promised my wife I wouldn't play any more basketball. But then he got involved with everything else, and he kept on being engaged and involved. There's a big story. Most people don't know that back then, Dr. Henderson probably, as a writer, used to write for the Star newspaper. And he wrote over 3,000 articles on sports here in the District of Columbia, and how through athletics and how through recreation, kids could be healthier, be exciting, how the sports could take them to the next generation of maybe someday playing against others that didn't look like them. And we found later on that all the things that he put in place, there was a thing that him and Anita Turner put in place. And I don't know how many of you all are DC folks, but back then there was a day called the May Day event. Do you know they still do the May Day event in Washington, D.C.? It's where most people know it as the President's Council on Physical Fitness, where they would do exercise and competition. They were the ones that started that. They would have 5,000 students at the May Day event at used to be where Howard University is, the Griffin Stadium. At Griffin Stadium, they had 5,000 people come there and do calisthenics, working out, and those kinds of things, tumbling, those kinds of activities. Anita Turner was the one who actually changed the whole aspect. She was the first African-American administrator in the District of Columbia. When she left her office after some 40 years of teaching, guess who she gave it to? Dr. E.B. Henderson. So he took over from her and ran the physical education. So these two people actually were responsible for setting up athletics and sports and recreation. And think about it, if our kids were moving more now, they would be much smaller, wouldn't they? They'd be more healthier, right? So the foundation is actually going back. We got to go back to putting our recreators back in high schools and colleges, because kids need to move. People aren't moving anymore. They're watching they're on that cell phone all day. But we are excited that we could be have Dr. Henderson, because he came up with the theme for the Pigskin Club, which was democracy in sports. And from 1938 until today, I'm proud to say that we have been providing the opportunity to award the top athletes in the DC metropolitan area because of Dr. Henderson as a charter member of our organization, because of all the work that folks have done to make sure that equality was the key factor in the District of Columbia. See, we could not belong to the Touchdown Club back in the day. We all are Redskins and the Commanders. I know I do. I grew up on them. But they wouldn't allow us to participate in the Touchdown Club. So that's how the Pigskin Club came about, okay? Yeah, and so we've been doing those kinds of things for a long, long period of time. Some of the other things that Dr. Henderson was responsible for. Oh, let me tell you about this, because I don't want to get past my time. But we wanted to honor Dr. Henderson. So the first thing we were able to do, we named our first building at the University of District of Columbia after Dr. Henderson. Now, from 1851 until now, we didn't have a name on any of our buildings. They were just building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So we were able to rename our first building on the campus, and we wanted to name it after an alumnus. Why is that important? Because our kids need to know that their history and how it reflects right here in the District of Columbia. Two outstanding alums who really set the pace. Now, Anita Turner actually has a school named after her. She was so important to the District of Columbia that 5 years after she passed, they named the school after her. Now, how many people get that opportunity, right? 5 years after she passed, they named the school after her, okay? Now, we have the E.B. Henderson sports complex now. We have the statue there. I'm now trying to work a deal out where we have a new field, and I want to try to name that one of the fields after Anita Turner, because I think the relationship should be right there with the two people who helped make things happen in the District of Columbia for us. I will say that I was very excited when I saw that there was a film You can go on YouTube and see the film on Dr. E. Henderson. I think you'll be amazed on how his whole legacy came to point. He left all of his stuff in a box for his grandkids up in the attic. Chronologized everything, all the contributions. It took almost 70 years for his legacy to be told. No one knew who he was. His grandson went up to see a box. He saw all these awards, all of this paperwork, thousands of documents, letters about what his grandfather had done. And so they said, well, let's see if the NBA will put grandpa in the Hall of Fame. There was no category for pioneers at that time. There were no categories for pioneers. There was a team called the Wrens. They put the Wrens guy in before they put E.B. Henderson, and E.B. Henderson was responsible for basketball being played for African Americans, right? And so in 2013, Dr. Henderson was put into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Okay? He was put in the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2013. And so we're excited that he got his just due. Just to let you know, we are working on a movie deal to tell his entire story, because he has a story to be told. And I'm grateful. I have more, but I'm going to take some comments or questions at this time. And I thank you for the opportunity for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Richard Lucas. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Advancement Officer at the University of the District of Columbia. I am really pleased to be here with you all this afternoon and to celebrate this occasion for one of our leaders in Barrington, Scott, being here to share this story. What you also should know about him, he is one of our exemplars for support of the university and support of our student athletes. You should all probably know as well that student athletes graduate at a higher rate. They become leaders at a higher rate. Their GPAs are higher at most universities. And he has been a champion to the University of the District of Columbia. So I'm glad to be here to celebrate with him and support him on this wonderful occasion for him to be here at the Rotary. And so thank you all for that as well.
You mentioned Griffin Stadium. I was wondering if you had any anecdotes regarding Mr. Henderson's confrontations or discussions with Clark Griffin or Mr. Marshall in the District of Columbia. Obviously, they were not like Abe Poland.
One of the things that Dr. Henderson did as well, and blacks could not go to Uline Arena, and he fought and fought and fought to the point where they opened up the opportunity for African Americans to come see boxing at the Uline Arena. Most people don't remember Uline Arena unless they talk about the Beatles. That's where the Beatles came for the first time in the United States. So the Uline Arena is the place. But Griffin Stadium, one of the things that Dr. Henderson did that people don't know, he loved football. And by being a referee, starting the EBO, the Eastern Board of Officials, he actually refereed a lot of games at Griffin Stadiums. In fact, they had crowds of 50 to 60,000 people to come see the Lincoln Howard University game. If you go back and look at some film, and in basketball, what was so he almost got in trouble with basketball, because when they used to do, you talk about before now we do the March Madness. He was having basketball games between New York and DC, and they would have almost 2,000 people to come to the games, and they were charging 25% to let people come in, and it was a controversy because students couldn't get paid. So he had to explain every dime. He had to write down every piece of money that he made and show that it was for expenses to get to the game, that it was for uniforms or what have you. He could not make a penny. And he was but it was very, very controversial at one time.
Hi, I just want to say this presentation is such a history lesson for me. But my question is, because I've married into a family of athletes, I'm just curious with the stage of where athleticism is changing, where it's being more diversified and it's leaning towards more international athletes that are taking center stage versus African Americans. In addition to the NIL deals kind of question mark, I'm just curious what your viewpoint is on kind of, inclusion is important, but how do we maintain the legacy of athletes rooted here in the United States?
Dr. Henderson was about democracy in sports. And that's what the Olympics actually is about, democracy in sports, having people, all nations, all kinds of folks. And one of the key factors is because, and you're absolutely correct, we actually had a student that come to University of DC from Senegal. He was so impressed about how UDC opened the doors for him to come get his education. He is now the new E.B. Henderson. He is the one who was voted by the NBA to start basketball in Senegal. So he's now the president of NBA Africa. So we've got two E.B. Hendersons now, okay? Amadou Gallo Fall is his name, okay? Check him out. He is from UDC, was the first one ever to be asked to do something outside of the United basketball or sports will be a global sport. We got people coming all around the world to be able to do this.
You guys got this guy sweating up here. So you get a pin from us. And if I can have somebody hold the mic for me.
Mr. Scott, our club has a tradition where we award all of our speakers a tree. We plant a tree in your honor right here in the District of Columbia. Yes. And there is a GPS coordinates for that tree. Along with that pin, you get that certificate that will literally and a letter with it that will literally show you the coordinates of where your tree will be planted. So, thank you.
The last thing that I have for you, I would be remiss if I come here and not recognize another true champion as the president of the Pigskin Club of Washington, D.C. And so I want to do something a little special. I have a version of my true champion woman, Lisa Foster at that time. We were able to put her in. We were promoting Washington, D.C. as the 51st state. We put that on her as she fought for Washington and won the championship. So this goes to you.
Oh my God.